Now, those redistricting boundaries will be a big story defining next year's election cycle. In short, they dictate which candidates will be pitted against one another. Our political bloggers, Jason Tolbert and Michael Cook, who each have their partisan stripes, were in studio to dive into the subject matter. Let's talk politics.
I think you have to give it a slight edge to the Democrats. You know, the party in power pretty much draws the lines that help them a little bit, or if not a lot, when it comes to redistricting. I know that's a crazy thing to say, but you look at redistricting across the country, Republicans do it in some states, Democrats do it in others. Of course, they still have to follow the law and make sure all criteria are met, but they did draw things that kind of helped them a little bit in this upcoming election.
Right. You know, I had a political science teacher that told me, he who writes the rules controls the game. Mm-hmm. So the Democrats are going to be able to draw the map they want to draw. So obviously they're going to create the rules to their advantage. Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting to me. It seems like they decided to really go for it in this map, and they're going to attempt to create a lot of competitive districts in hopes that they can hold on to the House and hold on to the Senate. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. You know, they could have kind of fallen back and taken a safety measure to make sure they created some safe districts that they could hold. But instead, they're going for trying to keep both chambers, mm-hmm. Which could swing either way. It's kind of a gamble that could pay off, and they could end up pulling it off, or it could swing the other way, and they could fall back to maybe below 40% after the election cycle is over.
You know, it's going to be in 2012. I mean, it's all going to come down to legislative races. Right. Barack Obama is not going to play in Arkansas. It's not a factor. There's no Senate race. There's no gubernatorial race. There'll be congressional races, but those remains to be seen if those are going to be competitive or not. But legislative races are where it's going to be at. And the key thing for both parties, especially the Democrats, is the one that I am more attuned to, obviously, is candidate recruitment. At the end of the day, you have to find these good candidates who are going to run hard, raise the money, and have the right message to get elected next time.
You know, I completely agree with you on the second part and disagree with you on the first part. Candidate recruitment is going to what's going to determine these races. Getting good quality candidates, whichever party goes out and gets the best people to run is the party that's going to win. But I do believe President Obama is going to be a huge factor. In 2012 is going to be much different than 2010. 2010, the first name people saw at the top of their screen was Governor Mike Beebe. This year, the first name they're going to see is President Barack Obama. That's the name they're going to see before they vote on these state legislative races. And I think that is going to make it extremely difficult for Democrats to win in this election cycle. They're going to be much more handicapped than they were in 2010.
Arkansans are completely different from anywhere else in the country, I think, because we have no problem with splitting the tickets. I mean, you look at 08, 04, 2000, Democrats lost the election here in Arkansas, but yet Democrats below the ticket on the legislative level won. So I think what will happen, Obama is not going to win Arkansas. There's nothing he can do to win Arkansas, I don't think, unless he camps out here for the next month and a half. But I think when people go, they'll vote against Obama. He'll lose, unfortunately. But then when it comes to legislative races, they'll look at him piece by piece, like, who do I like and whose message appeals to me? People in Arkansas have no problem differentiating between the two. A classic example being, 1968, we voted for George Wallace for president, Win Rockefeller for governor, and William Fulbright for the U.S. Senate. I mean, talk about a little bit of schizophrenia there. We have no problem of splitting our tickets.
Sure, and that's certainly been the historical trend. The question is, are we reaching a new paradigm where that's changed or not? 2010, I think, saw the beginning of that changing. Now, will the pendulum swing back to the old way it was pre-2008, 2006, or will it continue on, as most Republicans are certainly hoping that it does? Mm-hmm. And 2010 was just a preview for 2012, which will be even bigger.
Sure. Well, remains to be seen.
Exactly.
And we pick back up with the debate discussion between our political bloggers, Jason Tolbert and Michael Cook. What will be some of the biggest issues in next year's state races, and which party has the leg up at this juncture?
So, Jason, what do you think are going to be the big issues in 2012 on the legislative level?
Well, I think it'll be the economy. I think whether we're talking about national politics or state politics, it's going to come down to the economy. And it's really going to come down to jobs. You know, are people out of work and looking for jobs? What's the unemployment rate going to be? Even though Arkansas has been insulated somewhat from the negative effects we've seen around the nation, we're still feeling those effects. You know, we've seen, Yarnell's closed. A lot of people get laid off there in Searcy. And whether that's directly related to things people are doing in the government or not, people are going to associate the two. And if the economy stays bad, it's going to be tough for the party in power to win. If the economy turns around, and it may turn around, hopefully it will, but if it turns around, then the Democrats are going to have an easier time.
I would agree. I think jobs and the economy are going to be a big issue next time around. Education is always, at least on the legislative level, is always a hot issue. But I also think in terms of a thematic portion or concept of the election is, frankly, who is on the side of Arkansans? I mean, which political party is going to show that when it comes to bread and butter issues, when it comes to those discussions you have around the dinner table, when it comes time to paying bills, which party is seen that's really trying to do something to help people and protect some of these things that need to be protected, like Medicare, Social Security, and making sure we have quality jobs. Those things are going to be really what's driving, I think, the 2012 elections. I don't think social issues are going to be a big issue this time around because people they're worried. But I tend to believe, at least on the national scale, and it will also come to here in Arkansas, I really believe 2012 will be similar to 1984 or 1996, where the incumbent president had a tough economy, tough decisions to make, and then things got better. And then I think that trickles down to Arkansas, at least on the legislative level, where things will get better, and that will help the party in power.
Well, I think you're absolutely right in some respects. I think it's going to be all about which party can sell the voters on the fact that they are going to help create jobs. You mentioned a lot of different government benefits, and those are certainly important to people, and not trying to diminish those issues. But it fundamentally comes down to who do they believe is going to help them create a job. I mean, having a job is one of the most important things to people and to voters. And so whoever they believe is going to help the job creators, is going to help business come into the state and create an environment for them to really expand and to create the kind of jobs that we need to see. I mean, we've seen jobs leave the state, and we need to see those jobs return. We need to create a business environment where we can get those jobs back. I think that's the party that's really going to do well in the current environment. And
that's Arkansas. That's the Arkansas Democrats. I mean, with Mike Beebe and all that he's done and some of the amazing companies that have come to Arkansas. I think, when we have Mike Beebe, not on the ticket itself, but out there in the background helping out Arkansas Democrats, showing how they're different from Democrats at the national level, that we've worked hard, and things are not perfect here in Arkansas, but we're nowhere near bad off as the rest of the country. Now, that's not saying much to a certain extent, but I think the fact that our economy is still chugging along and getting a little bit better day by day, that is a big bonus for Arkansas Democrats.
Well, I think that's largely the case that Governor Beebe laid out in 2008. And at the time, I pointed out it's a tough sell. I compared it to the head coach saying, well, we may have lost a lot of games last season, but a lot of other teams lost even more games than we did. It's hard to go in and say the economy's bad, but it could be worse. I think that's the case Democrats are going to have to make, but how many times can they go to that well? How many times can they say things are bad, but they could be worse? Well, you said that last year. Are you going to say that again this year? That sell becomes more and more difficult as it goes on. I think a lot of Arkansans are going to say, you know what? Why don't we give another party a chance? Why don't we let the Republicans take a chance and see what they can do? But it's going to be close. I think it's going to really be right there on the margin to go either way. The map, as we began this conversation, the map really swings for the fences. I think that the governor and the attorney general really decided to try to play to keep both chambers, and we're going to see a lot of really exciting, competitive races. If the right candidates are recruited, then those races are going to be very fun to blog and very fun to talk about in the next cycle.
Time now to get Jason and Michael to chime in on their picks for winners and losers in Arkansas politics this past week. First up, Jason Tolbert.
Well, I think the person that had the worst week in Arkansas was probably State Representative Linda Collins Smith up in Pocahontas. She came into the Capitol last election as a conservative Democrat. She said, I'm a Democrat, but I'm against the implementation of the health care bill. She took a very conservative stance in the last legislative cycle, and she really got punished by her own party for that. She got put into a district with another incumbent Republican, Representative Benedict, and it's going to make it very difficult for her to win re-election. So that was really almost a warning shot to some Democrats that if you come down here and get too conservative, your party's not going to support you. And so I think that Representative Collins Smith and really conservative Democrats really had a tough week.
This was a bad week for State Representative John Hubbard of Jonesboro. John Hubbard sent a couple of emails to Attorney General Dustin McDaniel demanding to know how dare the Attorney General create a Spanish language website, and that why are we doing it for people who speak Spanish. I don't want to get into the whole details. You can go to talkbusiness.net and see more about it. But it was just sort of reading between the lines. You got a real sense of xenophobia of that, why are we doing things that could help people have better access to our government? God forbid they speak Spanish. So Hubbard, had egg on his face, looked foolish. Dustin McDaniel smartly sort of smacked him down, and it was not a good week, I think, for John Hubbard in terms of kind of exposing his true colors.
I think this was a good week for Governor Mike Beebe. He had the map come out exactly the way he wanted it to come out. I think that obviously Dustin McDaniel is going to go along with what he wants to do. He's going to get his proposal passed through the Board of Apportionment, and there's not going to be too much of a fight. He had a very odd, I hate to say gerrymandered, but just an odd-shaped districts on his map. He really kind of got to, tinker with some districts with some people who opposed him during the last legislative session, got to do a little bit of payback time for some people that rubbed him the wrong way during the session. So, it was a good week for him to pay people back and to really punish some legislatures that he thought didn't behave the way they ought to behave.
I would say Democrats were the ones who had a good week. I would disagree with you in terms of saying Mike Beebe punished people for disagreeing with him. First of all, there was 100 different House seats to maneuver around. And it should be noted that a couple of Democrats were put into the same district, so they're going to have to run against each other. So I think it was pretty even course that Democrats got short of the stick a little bit, but also Republicans. So I think it was fairly even-handed. I don't believe in any kind of retribution for trying to, God forbid, anybody who disagreed with Governor Beebe or Attorney General McDaniel. But on the whole, I will agree that it was a good week for Democrats because they controlled the legislative districting process, so they're able to draw lines that, frankly, are probably a little bit better for them. I mean, that's how the game is played. And anybody who says, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that," they're trying to fool themselves and fool everybody else because the party in power controls the process and will draw lines that help them.
Sure, and I agree with you. I mean, obviously, they make up the majority of the Board of Apportionment. It's obviously a political process. No one ever, if you don't think it's a political process, then you're not really paying attention and you're very naive. No. But I think when you look at which senators, which incumbent senators, which incumbent representatives got the short end of the stick on it, I think you'll find it's the ones that really didn't play ball the way the governor wanted them to play ball. It's the Jason Raperts, it's the Missy Irvins, it's the David Sanders, it's the Linda Collins Smiths. It's the ones that really kind of didn't really go along with the show. There were some Republicans that were taken care of and were fine. Their districts came out exactly the way they wanted them to come out. And it seems those were the Republicans that usually kind of went with the status quo and kind of played the game the way they wanted it to be played.
One thing I think we need to mention, though, is that you and I are talking about redistricting and this line drawn that way or a line drawn this way. One thing we've got to remind everybody is that voters just don't care.
Right.
They don't. A lot of times they don't even know who their state rep or state senator is. They're too busy. They got husbands and wives and jobs and kids and grandkids. They don't pay attention to which politician was drawn in or out of a district. So, you and I will be talking about this for a few more weeks, and our respective political parties will be crowing or moaning about the legislative lines. But remember, voters, they just don't care. Especially, as we mentioned earlier, they're worried about jobs and the economy, not how political lines are drawn.
No, I think you're exactly right. We're here in the middle of July. I think you have people that are a lot more worried about their vacation down to the beach or getting their kids ready for school that's starting back just in a month or two. And I think that's probably on the minds of most Arkansans rather than some sort of redistricting battle in a state legislative race that they may not even know exists.
Right.
But I think the ramifications of what's going on are going to be seen as we see these races play out.
Sure.